In the sleepy coastal town of South Bristol in Maine, in the summer of 1921, 10-year-old Thomas Newberg spent his afternoons standing on the rocky beach and tossing stones into the stormy ocean. There was little else to do with no school. There was no one to go home to. His father had been killed the winter before last, drowned in a fishing boat accident. His mother worked all day cleaning fish near Christmas Cove, and then spent her evening selling fish to the rich yacht owners and the tourists. When she did get home, she was always tired and grumpy, and reeked of cod, menhaden and lobster. Thomas was a quiet child. He disliked the company of the other boys in the town who frequently got into trouble, so he spent his days all alone. One afternoon, Thomas stood on the beach, just like any other day, watching the dark clouds hanging low in the sky as the waves crashed on the sand in front of him. He had carefully selected a pile of stones, the perfect size and weight for throwing, oval-shaped and flat. He had tossed his 7th rock into the water when he saw something break the surface about 100 feet from the shore. Thomas walked as close to the waves as he dared, careful not to soak his shoes and pants like he had done a week ago, prompting a painful slap on the side of his head from his angry mother. There it was again, this time unmistakable. A massive, dark green ball, rolling in the waves, its large, unblinking red eye staring back at him. It was unlike any fish Thomas had ever seen, and he had seen his fair share of fish over the years. It didn't look like a whale, its colour wasn't right, and he could have sworn he saw huge tentacles lash out over a particularly large wave that broke near the creature. "What are you?" Thomas asked to himself out loud. He took a step back as a large wave came rocketing up the beach.
"I am from the deep,"
came a soft voice that Thomas heard clearly, even over the crashing sea.
"But I have no name. I am just here. Now."
The voice was deep, throaty, masculine and gritty. It was just above a whisper. Thomas wasn't afraid. Thomas looked around vigorously, but he didn't see anyone. He could hear men shouting from far down the beach at the docks, but there was no one else close to him, certainly not close enough to speak to him.
"Thomas,"
the voice came again. "Are you the thing out there in the waves?" asked Thomas. The voice came back to him almost immediately.
"Yes."
Thomas paused before asking, "Are you bad?"
"No."
The voice came back.
"I seek only to be friends."
Thomas smiled. He was terribly lonely. He didn't have any friends. The child and the creature spent the next few hours talking on the beach, with Thomas mostly asking questions about what it's like to live under the sea and what it saw. The beast regaled Thomas with stories from the bottom of the sea, the fish that called it home and the dangers that lurk there. As day turned to dusk, Thomas told the creature that his mother would be home soon and he needed to head back to his house. The two exchanged goodbyes and Thomas went running off, excited about his new find. Later that night in the kitchen, Thomas told his mother all about his day, explaining at length the beast that he met as his mother cooked dinner for them. When his mother finally sat down, Thomas asked her, "Well, how about all that, Mama?" "That's nice, dear," his mother retorted, resting her head on her hand and closing her eyes. "I'm glad you made a friend." The next day, Thomas got up as his mother was getting herself ready. He waited for her to leave, and then he watched her walk down the street to the fish processing factory. When she was out of sight, he pulled on his boots, grabbed his coat, and ran for the beach. "Are you there?" he shouted out to the stormy ocean. Thomas ran as close to the sea as he could get before calling out to the beast again. The voice came quickly, much louder than yesterday, enough that it made his head sting.
"I am here."
Thomas cringed and stepped back, his hands going to his temples.
"It is good to see you again,"
came the voice, this time much quieter. "Good to see you too," answered the child, still rubbing his temples. The conversation carried on until dusk, when the boy had to return home. Again he told his mother of the day's adventures, and again she was incurious. The events repeated themselves for another week. Each day the boy rushing off to talk to his new friend, and each night the boy relating the exchange with the creature to his tired and inattentive mother. That is, until one day Thomas's mother scolded him for making up silly childish stories about monsters. Thomas went silent and finished his dinner before heading off to bed. The next day, Thomas got up, angry at his mother's accusation. He waited in his bedroom to hear the door slam, signalling she was off to work. He ran down to the beach, calling out to the creature just as his small feet hit the rocky shore.
"I have a gift for you today,"
came the voice, calm and soothing as ever. "How will you give it to me?" asked Thomas as he walked to the edge of the ocean, just like he had done for the past 2 weeks.
"You must swim out to me,"
said the voice. "But I cannot," answered Thomas. "The water is cold and I will drown. Mother says I can't go in the water."
"Swim out to me,"
said the voice.
"I will make sure you get the gift."
Thomas looked around, but there was no one else there. So he waded into the frigid ocean and tried to swim against the waves to the creature. It didn't take long for Thomas to tire. The painful cold had eased, and he felt himself sinking beneath the surface. He wasn't afraid. His friend was going to give him the gift it had promised. Thomas closed his eyes as he sank. Blackness soon overtook him. The entire town of South Bristol grieved for the boy, whose body had washed up the next day, pale and cold. Everyone just accepted that the quiet little boy, who was often seen on the beach near town, tossing stones into the water, must have slipped on the rocks, fallen into the frigid waters and drowned. It was sad, but not unexpected for the time. It had happened before, just not to someone so young. While the people of South Bristol mourned the loss of Thomas, 30 miles down the coast, at the small town of Ocean Point, 11-year-old Evelyn Booker was on the beach watching the fishing boats off in the distance when she heard someone speak to her.
"Hello, Evelyn.
Came the heavy, deep-toned voice.
I am from the deep. I have no name. I am just here. Now."